Hey everybody. So, starting to sort through this a little bit more in depth, and I figured I'd make a video now because I can, and you can't stop me. So, I'm sorting through the white, and alright, first of all, it's just like, look guys, you've got two 6-drop commons in white. What are you doing? What are you doing? Especially this, the Grassland Crusader. 5 colors and a white for a 2/4 Cleric Soldier. Tap. Target elf or soldier gets +2/+2 till end of turn. Okay, look. You could have easily made that thing a 2/2. Easily made it a 2/2. And dropped its casting cost to like 1 in double white. And that would have been cool. And it still would have been the same commonality, I would think. But no. You couldn't do that. Well, I think also part of the reason why you see that in the card design as well is because of the 6th edition rules where damage is put on the stack. So theoretically this thing could block something, tap it to give itself its bonus, and turn itself into a 4/6. So yeah, it could tangle with some really big stuff. The thing is white isn't known for its ability to tangle with big stuff. And yeah, I mean, when you got not just 1 but 2 different 6-drops in common in white, there's something weird going on. The other one was Daru Lancer, was a first striker with morph, so theoretically on turn 4 you could have a 3/4 first striker. Things like crowd favorites, 6 colors and a white for a 4/4 soldier. Pump 3 colors and a white to tap a creature. Pump 3 colors and a white, give him +0/+5 to end of turn. It's an uncommon, and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, you got cards that are, at least in white, you got cards that are bigger both in power, toughness, and in casting cost than they have any right to be. Seriously. Then you have things like this guy right here, Daunting Defender. He's 4 colors and a white for a 3/3. If he's a cleric. If a source would deal damage to a cleric you control, prevent 1 point of that damage. Now, first of all, does this guy look very daunting to you? Does he? The guy's wearing grass, woven grass for armor, and his weapon is a rock tied to a stick. I don't know. I just don't know. And that's one of the things I didn't like. Number 1, the art direction. Grass for armor. Really, guys? Really? Did we have guys using grass for armor in the previous block? I don't recall it. That was Odyssey block. This is Onslaught. I didn't like either block, to be honest. They brought back cycling. That wasn't bad. On the other hand, you had Astral Slide. That's 2 colors and a white. It's an uncommon. Whenever a player cycles a card, you may remove target creature from the game. If you do, return that creature to play under its owner's control at end of turn. Back in the day, that card was a royal pain in the buttocks. There were a lot of Astral Slide decks that were tournament viable. Basically, it's just like, I swing. It's like I swing if I have extra cycling cards in hand. After it deals combat damage, I cycle something, I draw a card, and this guy flashes out till end of turn, then flashes out, end of turn, he comes back in, and he's untapped. He can block. You want to swing with something? Okay, that's great. I block, damage goes on the stack, I cycle something, my dude's gone, your guy takes damage to it anyway. And it was too strong. It really was. Oh well. Then you have the Gust Cloak mechanic. Whenever Gust Cloak, here we have the Gust Cloak Sentinel, who's a 3/3 for 2 colors and double white. Whenever he becomes blocked, you may untap it and remove it from combat. That's kind of interesting. It really is. Basically what it does is it gives it's I guess what you'd say, it gives you the liberty of becoming sloppy with combat, though. And as much as the Gust Cloak mechanic seemed kind of interesting on the surface, I don't think I like it. Ugh. Ooh. I don't think I liked it. Another thing they had going on was tribal. I mean, horrific tribal. You had clerics and soldiers in white. You had clerics and zombies in black. You had elves and beasts in green, beasts and goblins in red. What am I saying? Blue. Blue had wizards and... Did Blue have something other than wizards? Wizards and birds. And to a lesser degree, soldiers. Mostly wizards and birds. Birds. But, they went overboard with the tribal mechanics. They really did. And one of the things that I hated about Onslaught block is that Wizards of the Coast, simply because of the cards that they printed, practically built your decks for you. You didn't even need precons. You really didn't. At least that was my impression. I remember at times going into playing Magic Online mostly at the time. I remember going into the casual room on Magic Online back in the day, and I played nearly identical black cleric zombie decks, because there were a lot of creatures that were both clerics and zombies. Ooh. So anyway, I went in there and I ended up playing against nearly identical cleric zombie decks 3 times in a row. After the third, when I won the third one, about 3 or 4 turns into the third one, I just typed a message to them like, look, I'm sorry, but I've played this is the third nearly identical cleric zombie deck in a row I've played against. It's nothing personal, but I don't want that matchup again. I know I can't. I don't want that matchup again. I know I can't win it. It's pointless. And I conceded. And, you know, the dude didn't say anything back to me or anything, but, of course, that's one of the other complaints I have about Magic Online, is there are too many people in Magic Online that treat you like you're an AI. It's just like, no, I'm a human being. And you get a lot of, you know, it's what they say on, you know, internet plus anonymity equals jerkwad. And that's the nice way of putting it. There are so many other ways we could put it. But yeah, they did have a few interesting things going on here. I mean, you had a cycle of charms. You know, it was nice to see the cycle of charms. Some of the tribal things they had that I thought did work were a cycle of creatures I guess you could call the ones. Black had Soulless One. I believe most of them were 4-drops. They had power toughness equal to the number of fill-in-the-blanks that you had in play in general. Soulless One was a little bit nastier because it was number of zombies, and it counted zombies in graveyard. I believe I have the white one in here somewhere. With a cleric. There it is. Yep, Doubtless One. Doubtless One effectively had lifelink. It was based on clerics. The green one had trample based on number of elves. The blue one was based on number of wizards. I can't remember what his other abilities were. And the red one was haste and number of goblins. And you know, I mean, they were all variations on tribal-based Keldon warlords. For those of you who don't remember, Keldon Warlord was 2 colors and double red, and he had power and toughness equal to the number of creatures you controlled. These guys are more like I said, these guys, they got an extra ability tacked into there and restricted it to tribal. But like I said, the Soulless one's extra ability was counting the ones in the graveyard too, so that's kind of nasty. But Soulless one without an evasion ability, like flying, trample, whatever, he'd get chump blocked a lot. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just kind of thought of Onslaught block as being Wizards taking creativity out of the hands of the players. And that was just the impression that I got. And I really just did not like Onslaught block. I'm trying to remember what came out after this. Next thing after Onslaught was Mirrodin. Mirrodin had its own set of problems too. I'll be perfectly honest. I didn't like Odyssey or Onslaught blocks. Invasion, which came immediately beforehand, was fan-freaking-tastic. I loved Invasion. Mirrodin, I liked, but Mirrodin had problems. Mirrodin's big problems is that the good in the block was largely overshadowed by the horrific, I do mean horrific, errors of Affinity and Skull Clamp, because those were just insane. I mean, really insane. But whatever, right? And then after Mirrodin, we had Kamigawa, flavorful but weak. The two major complaints about Kamigawa: everything was weak except for Jit. And Jit was insane. And then we had Ravnica block, which was freaking fantastic. I loved Ravnica block. But yeah, I'm babbling about stuff. So anything else I can think of right here off the top of my head? Hey, look, we got a Taunting Elf. Taunting Elf was actually not too bad. It's a 0/1 with a built-in lure effect. That is, when he attacks, everything has to block him. I tend to think of lure effects as at least in limited, mind you, lure effects can be game-winning. It's like, blop, I put a lure effect on this guy, I swing with the team, you can't block everything else, you're dead. I think maybe cards like Taunting Elf are not quite as good for that, because unless you have a way to give him haste, your opponent has a pretty good sized window of time in which to deal with him. But oh well, is what it is. Geez, anything else I wanted to talk about? We also had the Mistform creatures in blue. We had a bunch of creatures, knocking stuff all over the place, that you could pump colorless mana into them. Most of them were illusions. A bunch of creatures you could pump a colorless mana into them and change their tribe, give them a different creature type. That was kind of interesting. I kind of see the Changeling just being the ultimate end of that train of thought. For example, Mistform Ultimus, was pretty much the original Changeling. Had all creature types. But, yeah, the Mistform thing was an interesting go. don't know whether I liked it or not. It was kind of interesting. Because of rules baggage at the time, they actually had to change. They actually had to put certain weird text onto some of them. For example, one guy had the ability to change a creature's type, change target creature's type, but they had text on to change it to any type except wall, because at the time, pre-Kamigawa, the wall creature type had rules baggage, which was walls could not attack. And what they did in Kamigawa block is they invented the defender ability and gave that ability retroactively to all walls. And it was kind of interesting. Mind you, I have a wall deck hanging around somewhere. I think I've mentioned it before. Uses Rolling Stones and Coat of Arms, because all walls have the same type. So yeah, Rolling Stones, Coat of Arms, bunch of walls. Walls are huge, walls can attack, they come at you. It's awesome. Not really. It doesn't work very often, but when it does, it's really funny to watch. Yeah. What else we had? We had a couple of interesting things running around here. Like I said, cycling made a comeback. That was really, really nice. You saw some interesting alternate cycling costs. Cycling costs for more or less than 2 colorless. Cycling costs that involved colored mana. That was pretty nifty. We had the morph mechanic, which I should have mentioned earlier. Instead, I only vaguely touched on it. The morph mechanic was kind of interesting. Creature with morph, you'd pay 3 colorless mana, and you'd play the morph creature face down, and it's a 2/2 creature with no types, and at any point in time you could pay the morph cost and turn that creature face up. And it was rather interesting. It really was. I mean, it was an interesting concept. It really did allow for a certain amount of sneakiness, because if you had a bunch of face-down morph creatures, you could just swing with a few of them, and your opponent has to guess on which ones he's blocking, because he may very well end up leaving unblocked a creature that has a redonkulous effect when it does combat damage. And after blockers are declared, you morph the thing. He takes some nasty damage. He either takes a redonkulous amount of damage, or he just takes a little bit of, or he takes only slightly more damage, but you get a really neat effect out of it. He'll discard, or he'll take one of his creatures, or whatever. I mean, there's some really neat stuff in there. But especially heaven forbid it in the second part of Onslaught block, which I think I'll get to tomorrow. You have some really interesting things being done with morph. So I'm going to call this a video and get this uploaded. I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Be good.